Good evening, everybody, and thank you for having you with us for the new event of Italy around the world. Ufarasta Yama Vaketma Vetsakonavanerna. This evening with us, we have the Jewish Museum of Athens. And together with the institution, we have two very important guests. We have Gabriel Negri, who is the chief rabbi of Athens and the Greece itself, and is a really brotherly friend of mine. And I am very, very proud of having his brotherly friendship. And Anastasia Ludero, that she is the curator of the Jewish Museum of Athens. And I would also like to thank Internet Martino, the director of the museum, who collaborated in organizing this event. It's important, this event and this meeting of this evening among the other meetings that we had during this season. Why? Because this journey is passing full step of the Jewish Italy to Europe and the world. And the connection with Greece is a very great significance, marked by a deep mutual relationship of the two countries of today, Yavan and Italia. And it is enough to recall the expression used in the Talmud to refer the sort of Italy that is Italia shel Yavan, the Italy of Greece. And perhaps also we can to remind the friendly rivalry between the two lands about the first European diaspora. And I want to recall also just two moments of cultural motives that marked the shared history between Yavan and Italy, Greece and Italy. The arrival of the Italian and Sephardic exiles after the expulsion from the Spain. Anyone who has been in Thessaloniki for Italy and visited the synagogue of Yad Zikaron in the center of the city, and if he had a glimpse to the wall where are listed a dozen and dozen of synagogues, and among them, our audience surely noticed the names of Puglia Vecchia, Puglia Nuova, Calabria, Sicilia, and other synagogues that were in Saloniki until the World War II. And for more recent times, on the opposite side, people from Greece coming in Italy, for example, specifically in Trieste, as somebody knows about the Corfiotti community that emigrated in the big after the great wave of anti-Semitism that ended at the end of the 19th century. And already now is a very strong community inside the Jewish community of Trieste, the Corfiotti people coming in Italy. And about Corfu, this evening we will speak specifically about Corfu with Anastasia. But I don't want to spoil anything about her speech. And so firstly, I give the floor to Gabriel and afterwards to Anastasia. As usual, the rules are that on the bottom you can choose the language. You can write in the chat every question that you want, and certainly, if you may, also you can be open at the microphone if needs at the end of the conferences. Now, for the moment, I am pleased to give the floor to my friend Gabriel. Thank you so much for being with us this evening, and thank you for all the people coming to this event. Please, Gabriel.
Shalom, shalom. Thank you, Rabbi, and dear and beloved friend and family. Rabbi Spagnoletto truly is not a friend of mine. It's a member of my own family. That's how I feel. So it's more than a friend. It's a family that I chose to have. So thank you. And thank you all for the invitation. All the collaborators. Grazie mille. So as you already heard, my name is Rabbi Gabriel Negrin, and I serve as the Rabbi of Athens. I speak to you today out of both professional and personal interest. The first steps of the Jewish Museum of Greece were taken under the protective blessings of my predecessors, Rabbi Gabai Zatzal and Rabbi Yarar Zatzal. At the same time, the visionary founder and creator of the museum, Nikos Stavroulakis Zal, was also my mentor. I took my first steps in the research of Jewish Greece under his protection. So for me, this museum is not only an institution of history and culture, it is also something deeply personal. This evening, I would like to offer you a brief and short presentation of the Jewish Museum of Greece. First, by placing it within the long historical background of Jewish presence in Greece, and I will try to fit that during the time that I was given. Then, by speaking about the creation and development of the museum itself, and finally, by referring to the Italian Jewish presence in Greece, a subject that dear Anastasia, our great scholar from the Jewish Museum of Greece, will later illustrate throughout an emblematic example. The history of Jews in Greece is both ancient and profound, reaching far back into antiquity. According to archaeological evidence, Jewish presence in Greece dates back to the first half of the 3rd century before Common Era. In the centuries that followed, especially during the period of Roman rule and after the Maccabean revolt, new waves of migration gave further strength to the development of Jewish communities in the Greek world. One of the most important testimonies to this early presence is the synagogue of Delos, dating from the 1st century before Common Era and often regarded as the oldest synagogue on European soil. It stands as a witness to organized Jewish life during the Hellenistic and Roman era. And for you that you don't know where the island of Delos is, it's going to be easier to tell you that is right next to the famous island of Mykonos. Literary sources confirm what archaeology also reveals. Both Philo and the Acts of the Apostles testify to a strong and widespread Jewish presence throughout Greece. By the 1st century Common Era, the synagogue of Athens, Corinth, Veria, Thessaloniki, and other cities formed the heart of a vibrant Greek-speaking Jewish world. These early communities later becoming the foundation of the Byzantine Jewish communities, where whose members identify themselves as Romaniots, Jews of the Eastern Roman Empire, deeply rooted in Greek language and culture, yet faithfully Jewish in religion and tradition. In both large and small communities, Jewish life developed not only in numbers, but also in learning, with respected rabbis and scholars shaping a rich rabbinic tradition. A dramatic turning point came in the 15th century. The forced arrival of thousands of Sephardic Jews from the Iberian Peninsula transfers the demographic character of Jewish life in Greece. Their coming strengthened Jewish presence numerically and culturally, but it also led in many places to the gradual assimilation of the older Romaniot communities, with important exceptions in regions such as Epirus, the Peloponnese, and Crete. In the modern era, with the establishment of the Greek state and its gradual territorial expansion, more and more Jewish communities found themselves within the new political reality. After the violence of the War of Independence in 1821 and the tragic attack that Jewish population suffered, the Greek state recognized under constitution Jews as equal citizens in 1844, 14 years after the establishment of the state. Later, beginning in 1890 and gradually from region to region, Jewish communities were officially recognized as legal entities under public law, with Corfu becoming the seat of the first chief rabbinate, since the law provides that the chief rabbinate should sit at the community with the highest Jewish population. Then came the catastrophe of the Holocaust, the Shoah. During the Second World War, Greek Jews differed in ideology and way of life. Some were devoted patriots, others were deeply religious, other communists, other Zionists, but all were overtaken by the same tragic fate. 87% of Greek Jewry was murdered in Nazi concentration and extermination camps. This was not only the destruction of human lives, it was also the destruction of centuries of prayers, memory, scholarship, language, customs, and communal existence. Today, Jewish life in Greece and in Greek communities is much smaller. The Jewish population numbers approximately 5,500 souls in 9 communities, with the main centers in Athens, Thessaloniki, and Larissa. It is a living present, smaller, wounded by history, but still alive. It is precisely in that shadow of that devastating loss that the Jewish Museum of Greece must be understood. After the destruction of so much human life and so much communal memory, the creation of a Jewish museum became a necessity. It was necessary in order to preserve memory, to safeguard what remained, and to make visible the rich and many layered history of the Jews in Greece. The idea of establishing the Jewish Museum of Greece began in the late 70s. The museum was lastly founded in 1977, and it was first housed in a room next to the Athens synagogue, Beth Shalom, where I serve. At the beginning, it contained objects and documents from the 19th and the 20th century that had survived the war. To this first core collection were added religious utensils, documents, and jewelry confiscated in 1943 by the Bulgarians from the Jews of Eastern Macedonia and Thrace, and later returned to the Greek state. In the years to follow, the collection continued to grow. Rare books, customs, fabrics, jewelry, ritual objects, and household utensils were added. In 1984, the collections were transferred to a rental place in Amalia Street in the center of Athens, and the exhibition was reorganized due to the space. This development eventually led to the museum's recognition as a legal entity under public law in 1989. Then, exactly 20 years after its founding in 1997, the museum moved to its present home, a restored two-story neoclassic building in the historic center of Athens. The museum's permanent exhibition is organized around an octagonal axis that evokes the shape of a Romaniot tick from a Sefer Torah. This architectural and symbolic choice is already meaningful. It suggests continuity between the secret world of Jewish tradition and the historical world of Jewish memory. The exhibition itself is divided into thematic sections. One section presents synagogue life, including ritual objects, and even the interior of the Romaniot synagogue of Patras. Another trace the history of the Jewish presence in Greece from the late antiquity to the 20th century, including the contribution of Greek Jews in the struggles of the Greek nation and the Zionist movement. Other sections are devoted to Jewish holidays and to the circle of life, birth, circumcision, religious adulthood, bar mitzvah, marriage, everyday life and death. Others to traditional clothing and customs, and of course to the Holocaust, whose wounds remain central to any honest presentation of Greek Jewish history. The museum also includes temporary exhibitions and a library, both of which expand its educational and scholarly mission. But the museum does more than preserving objects. It presents relationships, connections, and memory of encounter. Among its holdings are also items that testify the presence of Jews from Italy in Greece. For example, a prayer book, maybe you can see it on your screen, a prayer book according to the Italian rite from one of the synagogues of Thessaloniki, as Rabbi Spagnoletto said. This is significant because the old Italian congregation of Thessaloniki formed an important part of the city's Jewish mosaic. The old Italian Holy Congregation, as you can see here, Keila Kedosha Italia Yashan, together with the Italia Hadash, and also a third one, Italia Shalom, preserved the liturgical customs and ritual and traditions of Italian Jewry, especially the Roman rite, Bene Romi, within the much larger Sephardic environment of the city. In fact, the Italian community was among the oldest Jewish communities of Thessaloniki, existing already before the expulsion from Spain, along with the oldest one, the Romaniot community, and a very small Ashkenazi presence since the 14th century, probably. This part of the story is especially meaningful because it reminds us that Jewish history in Greece was never simple or uniformed. It was woven from many threads, Romaniot, Sephardic, Italian, Ashkenazi, different rites, different memories, different accents, and yet all part of one large Jewish world. And this perhaps is one of the deepest messages of the Jewish Museum of Greece. It is not only a house, a Knesset of preservation, it is also a house of testimony. It tells us that Jewish life in Greece was ancient, creative, diverse, and deeply rooted. It tells us that even after exile, persecution, and near destruction, memory still speaks. At this point, I would like also to express my sincere gratitude to the current director of the Jewish Museum of Greece, Zanet Batinu. She is a devoted scholar and accomplished archaeologist and one of the leading figures in the preservation of Jewish heritage in Greece. With brilliance and great academic dedication, Jeanette continues the work and the legacy of her predecessors, bringing new light and strength to the preservation of Jewish historical research and culture in Greece, while educating scholars, teachers, and the next generation. To preserve memory is not a passive act. It is a moral act. It is an act of resilience, of truth towards history, and of responsibility towards the future. For this reason, the Jewish Museum of Greece is not only about the past, it is also about what we choose to carry forward. Thank you, and I'm sure that you will enjoy the next presentation from our scholar Anastasia Loudaro. Bechavod. Don't forget to unmute yourself.
So excellent. So I hope that you can actually see. Good evening, everyone. I would like to sincerely thank all those who participate in this afternoon's online event. I would also like to congratulate and thank the organizers, the National Museum of Italian Judaism and the Shoah, for their kind invitation. A special thanks to Mrs. Rachel Silvera, Communication Officer, for making this event possible and for managing and resolving any difficulties during the organization with great dedication and availability. I would also like to thank Mrs. Susanna Zoglia for translating today's presentation, and heartfelt and warm thank you to all. Thanks to the initiative and support of the JMG president, the late Sam Ben-Rubi, as well as the late Freddie Abravanel and several members of the Greek Jewish community, the museum acquired in 1994 at an auction at Sotheby's in London the illuminated manuscript, and since 1995 it has been on display in the historical section. It was first published by Stefanos Rosanis in the periodical publication of the Jewish Museum of Greece at the winter-spring issue of 1995, available online at the JMG website. To my knowledge, to this day, the manuscript has not yet been systematically studied or published, and even though it exceeds my professional expertise, we will try to re-examine briefly the manuscript, raising possibly new research questions. The manuscript is a proclamation, il proclama, as it says in the manuscript, of the Doge Francesco Ericho of Venice, in reply to a petition of the syndics of the Jewish community of Corfu, Parnassim or Kahal officials, meaning elected leader or representatives appointed to manage community affairs and serve as contacts to the authorities. Actually, the community in the manuscript itself, they are mentioned as Università di Corfu, requesting to take measures against vandalism occurring among other places in the Jewish cemetery and against attacks on the Jews of the island. One of the main concerns of the community was the digging up of corpses and the desecration of the graves. It is well documented that the situation of the Jewish community of Corfu during the 17th century has been challenging and difficult, and the manuscript echoes both the attitude of the Venetian authorities as well as the external environment the community was living in. The manuscript originates from Venice, and its main corpus is dated from December 20th, 1642. Stefanos Rosanis, who first published briefly as an overview the manuscript, dated the additional text up to 1742, but further research indicates that it dates up at least to the 1743 we will see at the folio number 14. So we will dive briefly into the manuscript, exploring its historical context, its artistic value, and finally, its content. And I'm really looking forward to your comments and questions afterwards. So it's actually like a virgin path for new research because, as I said, it's the first time that we are actually trying to explore its pages and folio together. So we are open for discussion, questions, and everything. Propose suggestions from you. So in 1386-87, Corfu fell under Venetian domination, which lasted until 1797. In 1492, expelled Jews from the Iberian Peninsula arrived to the island, while in 1494, more came from Naples. The population significantly decreased during the Ottoman siege of 1537, when thousands of prisoners were carried away. In 1540, Jews from Italy formed the majority in Corfu. As a result, two synagogues and two separate communities emerged, the Greci, Greeks, and the Pugliesi, Italians and then Spaniards, each with their own synagogue. So in this slide, you can actually see to your left, it's the Romaniote, and the rabbi and the shamash in front of the Hab is the Italian synagogue. In 1589, crypto Jews from Portugal enriched the Apulian community. When in 1571 the expulsion of all the Jews of Venice and its dependencies was proposed, the Jews of Corfu were exempt. It is also noteworthy that minimal restrictions were imposed on Jews in terms of real estate ownership or professional activity. As Cecil Roth wrote in the monumental book Venice, published in 1930, they were, for example, Jewish lawyers in Corfu, which was absolutely forbidden in Venice itself. And on the other hand, the pre-existing obligation of Jews to wear a distinctive yellow mark was maintained. In 1622, the Venetian administration issued a decree to which the Jews of Corfu were ordered to live all together in a restricted neighborhood known as the Ebraici, Jewish, or the ghetto. It was defined by Belisariou, Hagia Sophias, and Paleologus Street. And in this slide, you can actually see in the center marked as the number 10, the square, and to the right, it was the Jewish neighborhood. It's also on the map called 19 as Ebraica, and more or less it's the same triangular, let's say, urban space. And here you can see a modern view and alleys of the Jewish quarter in the 70s in Corfu. So the neighborhood was not a closed ghetto. According to Cecil Roth, no gates were provided to be closed at night. However, permission was required from the Venetian authorities to leave. The Jews were also forbidden to practice Judaism in public places outside the Jewish quarter. Nevertheless, they were allowed to buy the house they lived in instead of paying rentals to harsh landlords. Christians were not prevented to live in the Jewish quarter, even though they were discouraged. Overall, the consensus is that the socio-political environment of the 17th century was extremely difficult for the Jewish community of Corfu. So for their history of the Jewish community of Corfu, there is an online exhibition which I invite you for anyone who wants to see more information and photographs from the JMG collection and archive from our website, to visit our website and this digital exhibition on Corfu and its historical, religious, and political life. Now, the manuscript itself, as we dive into the manuscript, contains 44 folios on vellum, meaning high-quality parchment made from animal skin, usually calf skin, goat, and lamb, with 3 full-page illuminations, including 6 coat of arms in verso, meaning backside of the same leaf, left-hand page when we look at the manuscript, Moses with tablets of the law, again in verso, decorative border and capitals in gold paint, bound, as we can see here, probably in contemporary red Morocco. Its folio consists of one column of 20 lines in a neat italic cursive handwriting known as cancelleresca, Italia chancery style. The language of the manuscript is Italian with Latin terms. The right page features a prominent coat of arms flanked by a winged creature, which appears to be the heraldry of a noble family set within an intricate floral border. The left page, verso, contains 6 smaller coat of arms with ornate pink frames bordered by a similar floral design, which we will try to identify for the first time briefly and shortly. In any case, in the 17th century, the internal illumination of Venetian Commissioni Dogali or Ducali reached a peak of personal and political symbolism. These documents, as they have been characterized by researchers, were not just legal text. They were, and I quote, painting in documents, end of quote. These illuminations helped the Venetian elite justify their status through a visual narrative of public service and divine favor. While many state functions were becoming mechanized, the Commissioni Dogali remained hand-illuminated as a testament to the official's high rank and the enduring prestige of the Serenissima. So let us examine the manuscript closely. At the center, in recto, is a coat of arms, a blue shield crossed diagonally by a light color band. On the band are small black symbols, namely in the upper part a hedgehog, and in the lower part a stylized anchor-shaped symbol with curled ends and a pointed shaft. Altogether, the coat of arms corresponds to the House of Erizzo, verifying that the proclamation was issued by Francesco Erizzo. The red hat that you actually see on top of the shield is a stylized representation of the ducal corno, the distinctive ceremonial headgear of the Doges of Venice. Francesco Erizzo, who actually you see on the slide, was born in Venice, but his family originated from Istria. He was elected the 98th Doge of Venice on April 1631 in the midst of the Italian plague, which lasted from 1629 until 1631. Above the shield is a striking winged lion with a halo, possibly evoking St. Mark. The lion's wings are vividly colored in shades of pink and red, contrasting with its more naturalistic face. The shield is surrounded by an elaborate ornamental cartouche in pink, green, and gold tones with curling Baroque-style flourishes. Hanging below, let's see it here, are decorative blue tassels like elements that add movement and elegance. The entire composition is framed by a richly patterned floral border filled with stylized flowers in blue, red, and pink, interwoven with green vines and scrolling motifs. Below, elegant blue drapery swings hang from the frame. The verse of the manuscript shows a collection of 6 coat of arms arranged in 2 vertical columns of 3, each enclosed in richly ornamented frames. Each coat of arms is set within an elaborate cartouche painted in pink, green, and gold with curling, symmetrical scrollwork. Between and around them run blue ribbon-like flourishes, while the entire folio is bordered by a floral frame of stylized flowers and foliage in bright reds, blues, and greens. So starting from the top left, we can see a coat of arms of gold filled with a diagonal band composed of repeated blue triangular or zigzag shapes and handwritten the name Foscarini. The Foscarini family, and this is the first time, so whoever is a specialist on paleography or the history, of course, please afterwards in the discussion correct me. I'm open to suggestions. So the Foscarini family, from our research, was a prominent Venetian patrician dynasty in the 16th, 18th century, while Marco Foscarini himself was the Doge of Venice between the years 1696 and 1763. At the top right, the seal is divided in two parts. The upper half depicts a red rose, and the lower half is painted red. The handwritten family name is probably written below, to the right of the seal, and because we are not able to identify the name, we are asking also for your help and suggestion to identify the heraldic symbol that the noble family actually, or the manuscript, belongs to. But definitely there is a family name. At the middle left, a golden seal is depicted with 3 blue stripes and a fleur-de-lis inside the blue circle. The coat of arms is probably connected with the middle right, which is the heraldic symbol of the Contarini family. Niccolò Contarini was the 97th Doge of Venice from 1630 until 1631. During his rule, he faced the challenge of the Italian plague, who killed 1/3 of the population. He himself was a victim of the plague. Finally, at the bottom left, a shield with horizontal red and brownish stripes, bearing in the upper corner a small red rose. Below the shield, we can read the handwritten letters, the name Venier. And as a side note, also to this day, there is a surname in Greece, Venieris. So the heraldic symbol is connected with the noble family, Venetian family members like Niccolò Venier, who was appointed governor of Chania in Crete with the title Ducat di Canea. The family was connected with the history of Crete during the Venetian period on the island. Now, the last seal to the right is divided in blue, azure, and gold field, still an unidentified noble Venetian family. So, to the manuscript itself, as we said about Moses holding the tables of the law, the next folio of the manuscript introduced the reader to the main text. In verso is the full-length figure of Moses standing barefoot on the ground, which marked in green color, holding 2 rounded at the top slab stones, stylized form of the tablets of the law. He wears a layered robe in blue, pink, red, and yellow. His white beard and white long hair give him an authoritative and prophetic presence. What is interesting is what he has on top of his head. For the reader looking the manuscript from a reading distance, it looks like a pointed crown or, just to be challenging, a pair of horns. Could this be associated with what is known as the horn of Moses? A closer, however, examination of the manuscript shows a pair of thin, upward pointed lines as golden rays, a symbol of divine radiance. It's, however, known that medieval and Renaissance artists often portrayed Moses with actually horns, or, as in this case, with subtly rays of lights resembling horns. So in this photo, you can see actually from a Sefer Devarim that we have in the museum's collection, that Moses is portrayed obviously with the upward pointed lines as ray of light, as opposed to medieval and other Renaissance, and of course the famous Michelangelo statue that dates to the 1513, 1515 in the Basilica of San Pietro in Rome, that actually bears horns or resembles as horns. So in recto, we can see the introductory page of the proclamation. It begins with a formal address, nobilibus and sapientibus, meaning to the noble and wise. The capital letters are in gold yellow, stating in Latin the official title of the Doge, Francesco Ericcio, by the grace of God, Doge of the Venetians. The script is fluid and humanistic, and immediately we are informed of the issue concerning the Jewish community of Corfu. So just to be fair, this is the first attempt to actually look into the manuscript. Stefanos Rosanis, who published in a 2-page in the 2 pages in the newsletter just try to first describe the manuscript. So it has never, to my knowledge, in bibliography or at least in the museum, we don't have further information about its content. So overall, it's an unpublished document. So please feel free at the comment section to add whatever you see. I'm sure there are people in the audience that are more expert than me, so we are open. But when initially the former director actually tried to read the beginning of the manuscript, he reads as follows, and I quote, "Certain Jews of the same place, the ghetto, have complained to us that despite the degrees, orders and provisions made in recent times by our public representatives against anyone who would dare to disturb or harass the Jews of their dead, such actions are still occurring in the cemetery of the ghetto of our city," end of quote. And on another extract from the manuscript that it's later on, and here you can see actually a side note and a note below that says 1743. It was an additional note of a date that it was not seen at the beginning, since, as I mentioned already several times, it has never been fully studied and published, this manuscript. So there was an additional text that Rosanis tried to actually translate that says, and I quote, "A number of people in the city and on this island, either for their own pleasure or in order to insult the Jews, go from time to time to Jewish cemeteries at night and desecrate the graves and remove the dead bodies. Their actions are barbaric, inhumane, and repulsive to the human nature, which does not allow such treatment towards the dead. Moreover, their actions go against the will of our government, which treats its citizens without discrimination regardless of their identity. For that matter, it is necessary to stop this scandalous activity by the proper prohibition. We therefore make known to everyone that the General Governor has ordered that anyone who removes dead bodies from their graves and tombstones from the cemeteries will be condemned to be hanged." End of quote. Now, this remarkable manuscript allows us to connect place, power, and community across both geography and time, from Corfu to Venice. Beyond its artistic beauty and rich heraldic imagery, it serves as a vivid historical testimony to the realities faced by the Jewish community of Corfu in the 17th century. Through the voice of Dodds Francesco Ericcio, we witness not only the tensions and challenges of the period, but also the mechanisms of authority and protection within the Venetian world. While it remains uncertain whether this proclamation fully put an end to acts of violence and desecration, it undeniably reflects a moment in which institutional power was mobilized to respond to injustice. In this sense, the manuscript stands as both a document of hardship and a symbol of resilience, preserving the memory of a community that sought dignity, security, and recognition within a complex socio-political landscape. Ultimately, by revisiting and re-examining such sources, we do then more than study the past. We open new paths for research, dialogue, and understanding. I hope this brief presentation has highlighted not only the historical and artistic value of the manuscript, but also its enduring relevance in reminding us of the importance of respect, coexistence, and protection of human dignity. Thank you. Grazie.
Thank you, Anastasia, and thank you also, Gabriel, for your speech. It was very, very interesting, and this amazing manuscript, I'm sure that give curiosity to come to visit Corfu, your museum itself, for sure, and also the other community of Greece, like Saloniki, that has, for instance, another interesting Jewish museum, that are the two important museums that are placed in Greece. Thank you so much. Now, I want to see on the chat if there are questions that people want to address to you. Anybody, everybody are saying thank you for your your speeches. That was amazing. I can confirm. And if I don't see question on the chat, since we are close to the end of our hour, that is in every time that we dedicated to our meeting. Um, Rest to me just to remind the next meeting that we have briefly in the short time, and we will end the season of meetings on the 14th of May with meeting with the Jewish Museum of Amsterdam, and all of you are invited to this last meeting of Italy around the world. And but before, on the 27th of April, we have a presentation also will be in English of our current exhibition in the museum, that is Journey in Italy, Viaggio in Italia, that is a collection of images of photographs of the first decades of the last century, telling us about the important sides of the Italian Judaism. And therefore, I invite everybody for the first meeting of 27th of April. Also will be in English without translation. I think this time is without translation in Italian. And on 14th of May, we will encounter the Jewish Museum of Amsterdam. Now, let's see if meanwhile there are, okay, I need to just books related to the Marriott community. Perhaps this is a question addressed to both, to Anastasia and to Gabriel. If you have some book to mention, perhaps you can write something here on the chat to help our audience in order to echo. This is now is somebody is now quoting one important book, the Jewish History of Greece. Uh, that's I think that's enough. For other ways, we can mention other books in the through mail to the people who wants have much more bibliography about the Jews in Greece and specifically about the Romaniote Minhag. And can you answer my question about the Vinieri name and also Tabot? Okay, perhaps Anastasia, you can tell something about Vinieri.
So first of all, thank you for the questions. And I will try, of course, I invite also the rabbi. I have to be fair to you all. I'm not an expert on paleography or expert on Venetian history, and especially in Crete and the Venier family. You can see it from what I have recently tried to study for this presentation. To be honest, is all over the island of Crete. It was a very popular family, a very significant family. I think the archaeological service, there is online in the Historical Museum of Crete, and I invite you to go to their website. They do have bibliography about the presence of the Venier family in Crete, and also the history that they are connected. They're very connected to the Venice, of course, and to the history of the family. I just have to admit, and this is quite interesting, that's why we chose this manuscript, that everything is open. It's a challenge for us. It's one of the most important mine we have in our collection, but we don't have a solid information, and there are so many things that you can actually extract from the manuscript. So, and connections, not only about the relationships of the Dodds with the Venier family, which is a very interesting and very popular name to this day, especially in the islands, not only Crete, but also in the Cyclades. I would say for Greece, I would go to the Historical Museum and General Archives or the Venetian Archives, which is a perfect source for studying Crete at the time of the Venetian period. the Venetian archives, especially also for Jewish history, is one of the best sources, if not the only source, for studying history. So that's my contribution. I don't know if Rabbi, I'm sure there are more people who are more expert on this. I'm not sure if Rabbi has any information, because I know that he's connected with Crete and the Etz Chaim synagogue and the history. Please, Rabbi, by all means, elaborate.
What about Anastasia? What's the name of the book of Delange?
The Jews, oh, great. Thank you, Rabbi. There is a book by Professor Nicholas Delans, Jews in the Byzantine Empire. Professor Nicholas Delans, he's an emeritus professor at the University of Cambridge. He is also a rabbi, and he studies, of course, Byzantine Jewry. He's one of the best, let me say, on this subject, and he actually studies the sources, Crete, Chalkis. So yes, thank you, Rabbi, for reminding that. I would strongly suggest his book, The Jews During the Byzantine Empire. So he actually mentions families in Crete that are connected with Venetian domination and Venetian presence on the island. Thank you, Rabbi.
And in the other one,
Somebody is asking if you can write something on the chat about the author of the book.
Yes,
if you can,
I
just
will.
to add the name of the
Yes.
of the author.
Yes. Because of course you cannot talk about Byzantium without talking about Italy. And also about the, especially for Crete, Venetian archives is the only, if not one of the best sources of information and about the history of the communities at the time. So definitely, I recommend. I'm writing the Jews in the Empire. I think it is 20.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, are you writing? So
Yes.
I give you. Okay, did you finish? Nice. Thank you so much to everybody, to Anastasia, and to Gabriel, and to our audience. And see you soon in another meeting. Thank you so
Grazie
much.
a
And
tutti.
Chodesh Tov, a good new moon. This evening is the beginning of the month of Iyar, and so good month to everybody.
Grazie a
Bye.
tutti. Thank you so much.
Bye. Thank you so
Bye.
much.
Thank you
Goddess
so
Tov.
much.
Goddess Tov.